thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive. You rarely had a moment like this, you thought. Leaning back, enjoying the silence of the building. A cold, I can't believe it's not Coke Fizzy Fizz in hand. Such a rarity. For as long as you can remember, you had been on your feet. Your parents were considered lower middle class. Mother worked as a nurse. Daddy worked at a car repair shop. They were just barely able to afford your home. Sadly, because of this, your father made it clear that you needed a job as soon as possible. And that became your goal even as a young child. Just having a job. Moving out. To you, work was being human. You didn't have friends. You didn't have any you time. However, despite all your best efforts, you still failed at everything you tried. Practically wasting your childhood with learning things. Things that when exams actually happened just suddenly slipped your mind. History class, for example, you remembered clearly as day. You knew the facts. Your father going out of his way to write small mini-exams for you, that you always finished with a perfect score. But as soon as you were put in that large hall with all the other children from 3 different school districts for this exam, it just was gone. It was the worst day of your entire life, that even now you still haven't recovered from. Later on in life, when you already moved out and had a dead-end office job selling paper of all things, your best friend talked you into getting a therapist. It worked, you thought. At least that's what you told yourself. Plus it was kinda hot. But married, so never mind that. And after a year of not making any progress, he had suggested putting you into an open clinic where you could have group therapy. However, there was something you didn't want, as it intervened with your job. And only then he finally understood. The man took 3 weeks of convincing for you to leave that office job behind and go for this very position as the night guard at the Fazbear Entertainment Ultimate Mega Pizzaplex twice rebuilt. Quietly you suckled on your soda. You had settled yourself on a lounger atop the escalators of the lobby. Up until now, you had taken the job away too serious. Or more, there were things always happening. Like having to lock all Glamrock animatronics into their green rooms before 6 a.m. Making sure the janitor bots were doing their thing, doing patrols, checking cameras, but tonight, all this was not necessary. The place was clean, and only required sweeper bots. The Glamrocks had gone to their rooms on their own. All you did was seal their doors at the right time so they wouldn't leave. This only left the patrols. A night like this made the meager pay for this gig almost worth it. You closed your eyes for a moment, only to shriek when a ringing on your work tablet scared you. Crap. You looked at the time. You had somehow slept for an hour. How? You just closed your eyes for a minute. Quickly you got on your feet. Just on patrol, you muttered to yourself. Pretend like you had been awake the entire time. After all, you had put your lounger at a dead angle from a camera. No one knew you had slept. With your tablet in hand, you blankly started walking. Since all main animatronics were in their rooms, this meant you had no real goal in mind for your patrol. Anyways, it was just a checkmark on your list of things to do. You had no real patrol route in mind, and used the cameras mostly to navigate. Funny enough, this probably looked like you were taking your job super serious, rather than just playing around. Your first stop was Phaser Blast. The entrance was completely sealed, so all you really needed to do was confirm on your tablet that you had checked up on the place. From there, you made your way to Fazbear Daycare. Sure, it wasn't the most optimal route. However, interestingly enough, the longer your patrols were, the better it looked should someone check up on your work performance. Minutes later, you entered the daycare through the employee entrance and took a quick look of your tablet over the play area. The daycare had very little cameras and many dead angles, so might as well check on foot. As per usual, the daycare was well lit. The cheery daycare music played more quietly than usual, but that was fine. After all, there was no one here to hear it anyway. But why it was never turned off, you didn't know. Then again, you also didn't care. Slowly, you wandered through the area. Despite the entire place being fully lit, there were a few spots kept dark. Those included the two arcade rooms and the food court. The arcades themselves were separate rooms, with a windowed wall that allowed you to quickly shine your light inside to check on them. As you searched, you slowly began to realize how meditative this job could be after all. You were alone in a technologically advanced building. Air conditioning, silly music playing, and entertaining robots. How fortunate. You smiled and round the corner, and immediately were caught off guard. On a table in the daycare's food court sat someone. Well, something would be more accurate, the longer you looked at it. You sighed as you pressed one hand on your chest. Your heart was beating incredibly fast from the small scare. On the table sat a doll in a blue-stained covered dress. Her hair was a mess, and someone had drawn a mustache on her plastic face. You weren't one for toys, mostly because of your upbringing, but this specific brand, it was a Playtime Co. Poppy doll. Well, one of the cheap ones at least. This one was just rubber and plastic. However, the sight of her made you feel something. Something you haven't felt in years. It was similar to a sort of protective instinct that commanded you to grab it. And after doing so, you carefully inspected it. The doll was surprisingly light, like its insides were missing. Its dress was caked in finger paint. Her right eye seemed lazy as it didn't move when you shook the doll. Foregoing all caution, you pushed one of your fingers into the doll's eye. A noise similar to a CD cracking made you retreat your hand. However, after you shook the doll again, it seemed to have fixed the eye issue. And, with the toy in hand, you made your way into the daycare's play area. The daycare had 3 sinks and 1 drinking fountain. 2 of the sinks were in the toilet area, but those were locked during the night, and you didn't feel like going back to Roxy Raceway's security office just to pick up the master key to unlock them. The 3rd sink was in the play area itself and was used to wash away things such as finger paint or glue from the hands of a toddler. Carefully you stepped through the playground. The floor was entirely covered by soft rubber, and while that was making it fun and easier to walk through with bare feet or sock-covered feet, it was weird and almost alien-like when walking on it with shoes on. After turning on the sink faucet, you removed the doll's dress carefully. Once again, you checked over the toy. Well, except for some crayon scribbles across it, it was pretty much fully intact. She just needed some love. On her back was a gaping hole. The edges were sharp, like something had been removed rather than it simply being torn off by a rowdy toddler. But considering it was on her back, well, maybe it was where her voice box was supposed to be. While cleaning, however, you failed to notice the tall, lanky figure approaching you from behind. And not even the clicking of their joints made you turn around. However, you still shrieked when suddenly 2 white-gloved hands were pressed on your eyes. You violently teared against the arms that now locked you in place. "Help!" you squeaked pathetically. "Who is it?" asked the metallic voice, and almost immediately you stopped struggling, recognizing the voice of your assailant. "Son, I have to remind you that this is a violation of your harassment programming, and if you do this again, I have the authority to let them scrap you, and I know for a fact Brian would love to do that." Brian was the day shift guard, and while he was a genuinely nice guy, and a bit of a pothead, he treated the animatronics like the machines that they were, which was something the robots couldn't quite deal with due to their nature of wanting to be everyone's friend, so they often got on his nerves. Immediately, Son let go of your eyes. "You're right, Night Guard. It was me all along!" Proudly the robot slapped his chest. "I'm so happy you got it right!" He was completely ignoring your threat. Maybe he knew that even if he did it again, you wouldn't do anything out of convenience. Animatronic scrap requests were way too much paperwork to bother with. "What you doing?" Immediately you blocked the robot's view of the sink. "Nothing." "You didn't look like nothing." "You were vigorously cleaning something." You sighed. "Fine." In your panic from being grabbed, you had dropped the doll in the sink. So, as you picked her up, you splashed water everywhere. However, the robot didn't seem to mind. "Ooh," said the machine as he looked at the wet toy, its hair loosely clinging to its plastic face. "It's a doll." "Ah! I have an idea, Night Guard. Let's play house together after you finish cleaning her." Groaning, you crossed your arms. "And why would I do that?" Minutes later, you sat on a pink stool in front of a colorful table, the still wet doll staring back at you with a blank expression, while Son was at the daycare's ball pit pretending to fish. Your gaze shifted to the toy. "You know this is your fault, right?" you grumbled. No response from the toy. "What am I even supposed to do?" "Oh, honey, my beautiful wife," shouted Son all of a sudden. You looked up. "I would love some tea after I'm done fishing." So what am I supposed to do then, huh? He didn't respond.
Well, we outside!
He eventually shouted. You looked up at the ceiling of the pizzaplex. Yeah. Outside, you thought mockingly.
We're having a picnic! And you want to serve freshly brewed tea!
You closed your eyes for a moment. That explained why there were plastic cups and a plastic tea can lying on the ground around you. Reluctantly, you set up the toy tea set. Maybe it was because you were an adult, but you were incredibly embarrassed. But at the same time, you didn't see yourself as above this. You just simply didn't have enough imagination to not feel awkward and bored. Eventually, though, the robot waddled over to you and the doll.
How is my little family doing?
He asked energetically. You gave the robot a look of boredom. He then proceeded to gently pat the doll on the head.
And how is our daughter?
He stopped mid-movement and looked at you expectantly. What? You asked after an awkward pause.
Well, our daughter needs a name.
You sighed and intently looked at her, and felt a name plop up in your head. Fine. Scarlet? Yeah, let's just go with Scarlet. The robot immediately continued his previous sentence.
Scarlet doing?
It took you a few seconds to make the connection. I don't know, she has just been there?
Nightguard, are you not enjoying this?
You shrugged. Was it really that obvious? I just don't see the point.
Not everything needs to have a point. Sometimes things need to be fun. Come on, Nightguard. I believe in you. Just improvise.
For a moment you went quiet, as he sat down before you, his head tilting to the right. Biting your lower lip, you had an idea. But before you would go that way, you wanted to make sure. Okay, so playing house, you pretend to be a family, correct?
Nightguard, you really never played house?
No, but just answer the question.
I mean, yes. With all the fun and drama attached to it.
You suppressed a grin before leaning a bit forward. Honey, I need to confess. I cheated on you with our neighbor, Freddy Fazbear. Son was taken off guard and almost fell off his chair.
Wait, what?
It's just... You leaned back, making a dramatic pose to convey your pretend guilt and sadness.
You always spend day and night at the lake fishing.
With both hands, you groped your chest.
I'm a woman. I have needs too. I was so alone, raising our child Scarlet, that it just happened.
Awkwardly, the robot looked to his left and then right. This certainly was an interesting string of events.
Honey? Not in front of the child.
No! You shouted as you inhaled dramatically.
She needs to hear it! Every word, every sin I've committed, all because you left me alone.
If Son's face wasn't stuck in a permanent grin due to his faceplate, he would smile wider than you already did. He was so proud of you embracing playing house. He never had so much fun.
He made me feel so loved!
You wrapped your arms around your hip and slowly slid them up to your shoulders.
His touches, his kisses, this is what I needed. But I needed it from you!
You slammed both hands on the table.
Do you understand that?
that? He blinked.
I think?
He wasn't programmed with the knowledge of where babies came from. As far as he was concerned, wanting a baby was a shared wish of a couple that just led to a baby being delivered by a magical stork. Then he stood up and lunged at the robot over the table, locking him between your thighs and pinning his arms down with your hands.
Oh boy.
Breed me! Breed me like the man that you are! Breed me like you did back when we conceived Scarlet. Breed me in front of our daughter! You began grinding your lower half against him, and the robot blinked.
Night Guard, I think you're taking this too far. Also, I don't know what breeding is. Is it fun?
For a moment your heart stopped, and you blushed. Hard. You looked away. Well, technically the answer to his question was yes, but that would open a whole can of worms that you weren't ready to deal with just yet. You stood up and patted down your clothes to make yourself look decent again. I think I got a bit carried away there.
Oh, you think?
Did the robot just sass you? You quietly returned to your seat.
Night Guard, I have a few questions, but I can condense it into just one. Did you not have a childhood? Because you're acting like you never had one.
You sighed. Deeply. And finally decided to tell the animatronic your story. A story of ambition, maturity, poverty, and most importantly, work. And well, that's why I think my therapist said I should start working here at the Pizza Plex. A place where childhood never dies, and where there aren't that many people, at least at night. You shrugged. The doll made me remember something. More specifically, it confronted me with something I had forgotten. You see, when I was a child, we went to this toy store where they had one of these Poppy dolls on display. That was before the controversy, of course. And the one they had there, it obviously wasn't this one. She was so pretty. Made from porcelain. And you could practically feel her eyes follow you as you walked past her. I wanted her. But we didn't have enough money. My mom said if I do a good enough job in school, I can get a job and afford one, and well, now I'm here. The robot reached out to you, wrapping himself tightly around you before violently sobbing. You endured it. After all, you were the one who just attacked him like an oversexed college girl.
I'm so sorry for you!
Eventually, the two of you just sat there, quietly, for 5 minutes, until the robot spoke up.
I think you should keep Scarlet.
Your eyes widened intentionally. I really shouldn't.
Why not?
You're joking. I'm an adult. You would just collect dust in my apartment. The robot leaned forward and folded his hands under his chin.
That may be, but
He looked at the toy.
I think she should be happier with a caring mother like you. As much as I like my friends, you have seen firsthand what they do to dolls. And if she means that much to you...
He sighed. I get it. If she means that much to me, it would break my heart seeing her torn apart by a bunch of rowdy kids. Sun shrugged.
Well, I couldn't have put it better myself. In fact, I'm literally not programmed to refer to my friends as what you did.
You spent more time with the animatronic. Somehow he had convinced you to do finger paints. Well, more specifically, he was doing finger paints while you were completely engrossed by the security tablet, checking the cameras of the Pizzaplex. Finally, however, the clock turned to 6 a.m.
Night guard! Night guard! It's time for your shift to end,
said the robot, as he offered you the doll. With a smile, you took it from him. Thank you, you spoke softly, and before he could scuttle off to his alcove, you quickly leaned forward, gently pressing your lips onto his forehead. He squeaked and lied.
What was that for?
Your heart jumped. As seconds later you stepped back from him, heavily blushing. He began dancing around you.
Just to thank you for making me feel better.
The animatronic stopped, his full attention on you.
Oh, Miss Night Guard. That is my job. I was made for that. But I do like being recognized.
He giggled.
I love you, Miss Night Guard.
You smiled. I love you too. The amount of scattered toys were a nightmare to deal with. Why the machine was allowed to fill its place with trash was a mystery to you. Technically, this wasn't even your job. Those were the thoughts that plagued your mind as you went through the small rooms above the Fazbear daycare. However, just one bad step, one ill-fated move, was enough to make you fall. You were a handyman at the Fazbear Entertainment Mega Pizzaplex. It was a regular job, with regular pay, but the perks were amazing. Employee discount at 5%, which, while not much, was still a discount. Daily interactions with the smartass engineer Kevin, whom you had a playful rivalry with due to your jobs both involving fixing stuff. But most importantly, working in an environment that had functional air conditioning. Honestly, in summer, you dreaded leaving your work just because of that. And because of that, you made sure that whatever needed fixing, you fixed to the best of your ability. Today, you had been called for a semi-routine cleanup of the daycare attendant's room. The place was mostly inaccessible, and it required using scaffolding to get up. Normally, you did this with Kevin, but he was busy today, attending a junior karate tournament with his 10-year-old son Jackson. So it was just you up there today. Once every month, someone needed to get up in the attendant's room for cleaning and maintenance. This meant making sure his charging station was functional and the throwing away of any knickknacks the animatronic had collected. You sighed as you readied your trash bags. The cleanup started in the deepest parts of the alcove and ended at the scaffolding. You'd be boxed in here for a while. No toilet. Worst of all, no air conditioner. Yet, mentally prepared for this. You slightly dehydrated yourself by not drinking for the entire day. You had a portable fan that you placed on the balcony, overviewing the entire daycare to blow in the cool air from the area. So, it was breathable now, at least. You sighed as you looked at the mountain of trash before you. Dirty plushies, half-finished finger paint pictures, suspicious glitter glue stains. Thank God there was no mold. Mold was expected at this point. For an animatronic who was designed for cleanliness, his place being so dirty didn't make a lot of sense. You and Kevin even had come up with theories. The currently working one was Son simply throwing away what he considered trash in his room because most of the trash bins were outside of his general play area. But as your eyes fell upon the pictures, some of them quite childlike, not the borderline art he was capable of producing, you furrowed your brows as you looked at a half-finished picture of what was obviously day shift guard Brian sitting at the daycare security desk. The kid had drawn him with his phone in his hands. The words "Plants vs. Zombies guy" were written above him. You blinked. You should report this to the owner of the Pizzaplex, Amir, but you also didn't want to fuck with the man's job. You just don't fuck with a guy's job. Simple as that. So a funny idea came to you. Considering the fact that this picture was about to be thrown out anyways, you pulled out a pen from your pocket, crossed out the Plants vs. Zombies guy letters, and wrote "Lazy Pothead" over it. Chuckling at your own joke, you disposed of the picture. Slowly you worked your way over the balcony. Thankfully, by cleaning this place every month, it had been successfully reduced to 3 full bags of trash rather than 5, when you started this with Kevin. But it was around this time you realized something. The talking and mumbling and laughing from the daycare had all but stopped. You looked behind yourself. Was it really this late already? Looking down at the entirety of the daycare, the last few children were escorted out by Brian to be reunited with the parents. The sun-faced animatronic waving them goodbye, and then noticing your watchful gaze. He jumped up and happily did a dance for you. Smiling, you huffed. Maybe this wasn't all bad after all. You waved back. However, just as you were about to return to your work, you stepped on a ball. You shrieked as you were catapulted out of the balcony. Of course, something clumsily stupid like this would be your end. Yet still, you shouted, "Help!" as you clung for dear life to the balcony. Your arms screamed in pain as your entire weight now rested on them. Your fingers scratched against the balcony, and your legs wiggled around in a desperate attempt for purchase. You were so scared. You couldn't even cry. That's how terrified you were. While you were squirming in pain at what you preserved as your inevitable demise, the attendant sprung into action. As his Save Our Souls, in short SOS, program sprung into action. The SOS program was designed for animatronics who had a non-cooperative personality, to force them to perform things like CPR if needed. Roxanne Wolf, Montgomery Gator, and the daycare attendant all had been outfitted with this system. The robot took a hold of the rope he used to float around the daycare, and lifted himself up to the balcony. As he jumped down on the floor, his hands took yours, and for a moment you thought you'd still fall. But his grip was iron tight. "Calculating response to current situation," he said. "No time for response, can't you just pull me up?" "Long live the Queen," said the robot ominously. Wait, what? You were going to die. Oh God, you were going to die. You were so focused on being a sobbing mess that you didn't notice the machine actually pulling you up onto safe ground. "Oh God, please don't drop me," you cried as you assumed the fetal position. Sun's SOS program meanwhile shut down, as to him, the situation had been cleared. As his primary personality returned, he couldn't help but tilt his head. He could have sworn a moment ago you had just waved at him. And why were you crying now? How the hell did he get up here? He made a noise and poked your back with one of his long fingers. The moment his metal touched you, your body convulsed, and you unleashed a scream louder than anything you had ever produced. But then, you blinked, slowly realizing that you were no longer in danger. The robot was squatting down next to you.
What's wrong? What happened? I don't remember what happened,
asked the robot with concern. You blinked. Wait, so, you didn't drop me? Your heart was racing. Were you dead? No, this felt a little too real to be dead. Ugh, your head hurt, and your face was wet from tears and the snot and salvia you spat out while uselessly crying on the ground. You felt stupid. Pressing your back against the safe balcony wall, you began to slowly breathe.
Miss Engineer, I'm sorry, but can you please explain to me what happened?
You looked up at the machine. Your eyes fell onto the evil ball that had caused all this. Blushing, you looked away from it. I just fell.
Oh, my sweet pumpkin!
The robot leaned forward and wrapped himself around you. Blushing, you patted his back. It's all right, you muttered.
No, I'm sorry! This is my fault!
Now he was the one crying. How sweet of him.
If I wouldn't have turned my place into such a mess, this would not have happened.
The more the robot spoke, the more sad it became. Sonny, it's okay, I think. For a moment you expected him to get back up on his feet and just say okay and return to normal. But instead, slowly, gently, he moved off of you. And with his head hung low, he proceeded to grab one of the garbage bags.
Please, let me help you throw them away. I feel horrible.
Son, it's okay. You thought for a moment. Okay, Sonny, I have an idea. Please listen to me. He tilted his head. We still aren't finished with the cleanup, right? Ugh, God, this hurt. You so rarely needed to act like an adult. Honestly, you were quite mad. But also, your arms felt sore and your heart was still racing and you were really done with this situation. It was so difficult right now not to just punch the machine, leave via the scaffolding and quit your job out of sheer burst of emotions you were feeling. Honestly, it kind of scared you. How much you wanted to do this right now. Yeah, maybe that's just what it meant to grow up, right? Right? How about we finish the cleanup together, and we see what we do afterwards, alright? He nodded. Slowly you got up on your feet. Growling erupted over your face. While sitting, you didn't even realize how dizzy you were. And at least no one saw this. God, imagine this happened during playtime. With Son's help, the rest of the cleanup went over quite fast. 3 bags, as expected. You set them down on the scaffolding, suddenly being very aware of how high the gondola was.
Miss Engineer?
Yeah, just give me a moment. You inhaled deeply. If you wanted to reach food, water, A fucking toilet? You needed to get the hell down here. With shaking legs, you stepped on the cart's wood, before slowly pulling yourself down on the ground. When you stepped off of it, trash in hand, you looked up at the animatronic. By now he reconnected his rope, and he was right now pulling the gondola up to secure it. After the robot joined you a few minutes later, he very energetically demanded to carry at least 2 of the bags. You didn't argue with him. We need to bring them to the janitor station so they can sort the recycled stuff out of it. The robot nodded. The pizzaplex was eerily quiet. Well, it was 6 p.m., so the entire section around the daycare was closed for the day. And soon, you set the bags down in the janitor station.
Okay, Miss Engineer, we're done with your work, right?
You shrugged. Why was he so enthusiastic about you finishing your work? But technically, you still were on the clock for another hour. Yeah, sure. Sure, you answered the machine with a nod.
Good. Then, let me do something nice for you.
You sighed, allowing the robot to take your hand. The robot guided you back into the daycare.
Well, what now? He blinked. Well, originally, I wanted to print you out a birthday pass for the daycare arcade, but, by now I realize you wouldn't like that.
You bit your lower lip. Actually, you would like that a lot. But employee policy. You weren't allowed to accept any coupons or discounts from the machines, as those rewards were for customers only.
Well, what else did you come up with? I want to give you a massage!
You blinked, perplexed. But as you were processing what he said, he already pushed you into the daycare and onto one of the small pink stools in the playpen. You really don't need to, but the machine already gently set his long metallic hands on your shoulders. Awkwardly, you gazed at your reflection in a window. The robot, while having his hands safely secured, was shuffling to find the right spot. After a moment of silence, his fingers formed a C shape. Gently he felt the contours of your back muscles until he reached your collarbones with his fingertips, making you blush. And then your body shook. It hurt a lot. But at the same time, his gentle ministrations made you gasp. The cool feeling of his synthetic fingers made your spine tingle. You moaned.
How can you... How are you so good at this? Oh, I can answer that.
While he was talking, he slightly increased the intensity of his massage.
The original plan of the Pizzaplex was to be open all day and night, and offer a spa for adult entertainment when the children would go home.
You blushed. You didn't know that.
But management soon realized that calling it adult entertainment, even if it was just pure wellness, would lead to weird looks and bad public relations.
You nodded, thinking about the weird art you saw of Roxy on the internet. Yeah, I can see why. You groaned in pleasure, just as he hit the right spot.
Oh, God. So, this is still in your programming? Precisely!
Sadly, though, it seemed like the programming was incomplete, as the entire experience only lasted for about 10 minutes, and he never made you lie down on the ground so he could really work on your muscles properly. However, you still managed to almost fall asleep. You inhaled as he stepped away from you. Smiling, the two of you once again embraced. "Hey, Sonny," you whispered.
Yes, Miss Repair Lady?
You looked into his goofy eyes, before gently pressing your lips onto his ever-grinning face. At first you thought it would be weird, but you felt so relaxed you didn't care. Went the robot.
What was that for?
For saving my life, you dork. As you were enjoying something akin to a boyfriend experience with the animatronic, Brian, the day shift guard, got ready to leave, only to be told by the manager to do the recycling today. The man just shrugged and walked to the garbage, where he haphazardly threw the stuff out, not really caring if everything went in the right bin. However, he noticed a certain image fall out of one of the bags. It kinda struck him. Quickly he leaned into the trash container and grabbed a piece of paper. It had a small stain on it and was a bit crumbled, but it was still intact. So intact, in fact, he could read it. Lazy pothead, huh? He said with a wide grin. Nice. Now this is art. Quickly he folded the picture and put it in the pocket of his pants. This is going right on my fridge. You were excited. It was your first day, or, well, night, working alone as the night guard of the Fazbear Entertainment Mega Pizzaplex. With how many times this place had been rebuilt because of fires and sinkholes, they seriously needed to make that name a little bit longer. You had started working here a few months ago, as a fresh newbie night guard. Your internship was pleasantly short, just 2 weeks, before you were offered a job. While officially no training to be a night guard was required outside of watching a quick job training presentation video, the leader of the day shift guards, Brian Chesterwell Crawford, made sure you're not thrown into the fire unprepared. And thank God he did. The man was a people person and could immediately tell how uncomfortable you were around adults. So he signed you up for the night shift. For a few weeks, you had then worked with one of the Pizzaplex's shift guards, a big Russian guy everyone just called Terminator. But his real name was Dimitri. He was nice, albeit really rough and blunt, and his way of dealing with the animatronics was, as he called them, the machines, was very violent. However, finally, tonight, you were alone. Your chest heaving with pride. You had slept the entire day just to be fresh and ready for the night. Sure, this wasn't a prestigious job, and considering how lackluster the official training was, seriously, one video? Not to mention the low pay, it would at least cost you. No shouting people, no vomit on the floors, just you walking around an empty building at night. Filled to the brim with stuff, and great stuff it was. Due to reasons, most lights were off, but enough left on so you didn't really need your flashlight. You walked down the alley of Rockstar Row. While a security guard was on night guard duty, they had a small checklist of things they needed to do by the end of the night, no matter what. Number 1. Make sure the Glamrock animatronics were inside their green rooms for the morning presentation. 2. Locate, identify, exterminate any leftover stains that haven't been discovered by the janitors during the day and send a janitorial staff bot to deal with it. 3. Complete a minimum of 3 patrols. There were 5 patrol routes designed by Brian for convenience. He called them the lazy river of work. The cameras of the Pizzaplex picked up how far a night guard traveled on each patrol and would automatically register when the night guard wandered around was considered a patrol. 4. Taser, detain, call police on any intruder. Not that that would ever happen though. Especially with guys like Brian and Terminator being known to work here. The leader of the guards, always being armed with a crowbar he held like an anime protagonist wielded a katana. And the most prominent shift guard Terminator just being a gentle giant who went toe-to-toe with the robots on an almost nightly basis. You blinked suddenly and grinned. You felt like you were trapped in an RPG with hot guys all around you. You continued your patrol, mentally now playing cheerful chiptune music in your head. Maybe your specialty was having an overactive imagination. Would that make you a wizard? You pulled up your work tablet, checking cameras just in case. You knew from your co-workers, once the animatronics were locked in their green rooms, there was nothing to fear they couldn't get out. But you just wanted to make sure. Freddy was lying in his bed, his eyes turning to various colors, like a gamer PC. Clearly he was deeply in thought. As per usual, Monty's cam was off, but you could hear arcade noises. He was probably trying to raise his Tetris high score. Roxanne was doing something interesting though. Despite her being a robot, she was uselessly doing gymnastics of all things by herself. Interesting. Lastly, Chica was in her charging station with her eyes closed. Everything was normal. However, it was just then when suddenly someone crashed through a door. A mechanical voice called out. Concerned, you pulled out your taser and approached. It was the daycare attendant in his moon form. Rockstar Row was a little darker than most of the Pizzaplex, so it made sense. But why was the robot here?
Night guard,
growled the robot as he got on his feet. He was leaning left to right excitedly.
Son is looking for you.
Why didn't you send my tablet a notification then? You didn't need to leave the daycare.
I know.
The robot raised both hands defensively.
But I saw it as a chance to walk around for a bit and get rid of that stupid song for a while.
Uh-huh. You approached the robot while putting your taser back. You scared the living daylights out of me, by the way. The robot didn't respond by talking. He just pulled out a piece of paper with the text, "Night Guard, I need to tell you something." What do you need to tell me? You asked. Moon shrugged sheepishly.
By Afton, how should I know?
You two are the same person. The animatronic's head turned upside down.
But where would the fun be in that? How about it, Night Guard? A game of tag. If you catch me, I'll go to a more lit up area on my own, and you can ask Sun directly.
Without you being able to protest, the robot zipped off. You could practically see the cartoony cloud he left behind. Not up for games, you immediately cheated and pulled out your security tablet. You slowly walked behind him, guiding him into a security office where you could see him hide under the desk, waiting for you to walk past him, probably to jump scare you. You simply pressed the big red lockdown button. The doors of the office shut closed and you looked through the window as the robot crawled from under the desk. He pressed his big moon face against the glass, his eyes glowing in a threatening dark blue. No wonder kids were afraid of him. You used the messenger app to send a direct text to him. I would consider this a gotcha. His head slowly ticked to the right until it made a full 360 turn. Ah, terrifying, you typed sarcastically. Finally, the robot responded in the text messaging app.
You win.
In the messaging app of your security tablet, you opened the door and defeated the robot left.
Fine, newbie. Just follow me.
Surprisingly enough, Moon walked towards the maintenance tunnels. You said
that I would go in the light. Yes, we are going to parts and services.
You blinked. Why?
Because of what Sun wants to tell you. Trust me, I'm making this easy for you. Because of how creatively you won our little game of tag, newbie.
Quietly you walked behind the robot through the damp, dark maintenance tunnels, dodging the many staff bots who were busy doing staff bot things, like cleaning, charging themselves, ordering crates. The simpletons never stopped working, did they? Finally, you entered parts and services.
Turn off the light, so I can enter this place. And I'll explain.
You walked over to the light switch as Moon strapped himself into the operating table.
Now, here's the thing. What Sun will show you will require a bit of maintenance.
You blinked. I'm not qualified. At least not yet. Kevin is busy. The robot sighed.
This needs to be done before the place opens. Be creative, Night Guard. Turn on the light. You'll know what to do, eventually.
You switched the lights on. The robot shuddered on the table as his magnetic hat fell off to the ground, and his sunny spikes shot out of the sides of his face.
Oh boy!
Shouted the robot. He looked around.
Wait, where am I?
Finally, Sun noticed you by the light switch.
Oh, hey, newbie! I need to ask you something.
He mused. Slowly you approached, concern on your face. Yes, Sun? He giggled.
I need to know what a word means. I learned it just today.
A horrifying thought came to you. Go ahead.
What does fuck mean?
The obvious answer was when a mommy and a daddy really like each other and were quite kinky, they would... You shook your head. That would probably be too much for the machine. You scratched the back of your head.
Is it a bad word? Did my friends teach me a bad word? Why did they teach me a bad word?
You sighed. You knew from your employee manual and the video presentation that it was absolutely forbidden to teach animatronics curse words. The only exception were Roxy and Monty, as their built-in profanity filter allowed them to say one curse word per week, to stay PG while still being the cool, edgy teenage robots. This meant, however, that Sun, for example, had a rather weak profanity filter himself, as he could not say curse words on his own unless someone taught him. And then you understood why Moon wanted to be down here. You needed to remove the knowledge of the word fuck from the robot. How the hell would you do that? But first, you needed to calm down the machine. You huddled into the protective dome where you gently placed a hand on Sun's tummy. That word is really bad, Sunny, my boy. But, don't worry. Mama Nightguard can fix this, okay?
Are you going to wash up my mouth with soap?
You blinked. That sounded like something Brian would do as a joke. No, I'm not. Mentally you added, I'm going to do something much worse. You then walked over to the maintenance computer and were dumbfounded. You knew enough to know that the removal of animatronic memories required this thing. Now how the hell would you do that? Maybe you should call someone? Using the emergency call function of your tablet, you called Brian. He was the only one you could call as a security guard, after all, without it being a true emergency like a fire. Maybe you could connect you to an engineer? Maybe Kevin? The phone got picked up, but no one answered. Brian? He asked. What? The man sounded angry. Hey, evening. He didn't respond. You probably just woke him up. So, I have a problem. Sun says... fuck. As if to underline the issue, the robot shouted,
Fuck!
Brian snorted and then burst out into full-on laughter. It took the man a few seconds to calm down. Alright, newbie. I got you. Don't worry about it. Just give Uncle Brian a second to wake up. It took the man 5 minutes to say something again. Okay. Let me think. Basic memory removal, something all security guards need to be able to do. It's like a 4-step thing. It's really easy. Got it? You listened carefully to Brian's explanation. First, you pulled up Sun's audio logs. It was a simple program that recorded every conversation the robot had. It was used for market research and to find any misdeeds. Brian explained how you could search for specific words. Obviously, you typed in the F word. You were greeted by a long text exchange. Okay, I need to like visualize the keyboard in front of my inner eye. Okay, I got it. Press the V button on the keyboard to have him repeat sections. You just click around the hour mark where he learned the word. Got it? You press the button.
What word?
Said the robot, and for a moment he looked at you.
I didn't want to say that.
Okay, seems like you found the start. Press it again. You gasped when you heard Brian's voice come from the machine.
Well, little buddy, that's this word.
Have you heard?
Heard what?
Oh, you haven't heard? I was under the assumption everyone has heard it.
Tell me, Brian.
A bird. A bird is the word. You bit your lower lip. Brian? What the fuck?
Fuck!
See how easy it is to say that word in this job? Take that as a lesson, kiddo. Chuckled Brian over the phone. Now, after a moment of you just being done with everything, you press the V button one final time. Fuck, son, it's so fun to mess with you, little buddy, said Brian's voice from the robot. I found it, you piece of shit, you growled into the phone. Sweet, said Brian. You did this on purpose, didn't you? Ignoring what you said, he continued. Now you selected 10 minutes around the instance of me saying the F word and us discussing it, and then you press delete. You followed his order, albeit with a terrible feeling. You felt as if you should preserve this to show it to your boss Amir. But after a few seconds, Brian continued. And let's pretend this never happened, newbie, got it? Fine. You didn't want bad blood between you and him, not yet at least. You press delete. I'm guessing that click and the silence means it's done. Okay, now hit the save button and then the progress button. Process button. Yeah, process. Sorry, still a bit, Anyways. After you did that, after you press the process button, the arms of the protective dome will do the rest. Don't worry about it, it's all automatic. Doing as you were told, you watched as the doors of the protective dome closed, and the arms slowly removed the daycare attendant's facial plate. Then one of the arms inserted itself into a strangely shaped jack, and the robot vibrated. And after about 10 seconds, the entire spectacle was already over. The arms retreated, and Brian gave a pleased, "Good job, newbie. You're natural." Uh-huh, you growled.
Hey, what am I doing here?
Cried Sun. He pushed against the restraints.
Oh no, am I being dismantled?
Oops, looks like he's getting emotional. Do your suppression thing.
My what? Hey, newbie! I'm not being dismantled here, am I?
Suppression matters. Every guard has one. You blinked. Wait, was that why Terminator beat up the robots?
I'm not gonna punch him. Punch me? But I didn't do anything!
Everyone has one. Be creative. Come on. I believe in you. As if to aggravate you even more, Brian just hang up with a cheeky good night. With a concerned face, you approach the panicking son. Shh! You're not being dismantled.
But why am I down here then? Why are the arms moving?
They weren't moving. He was just imagining things. Suppressive measures. You kept thinking, desperately. Wait. Brian whistled and got animatronic's attention almost instantly. But you couldn't really get his high note. Terminator used a perfectly timed punch, obviously. Was that it? Was that a suppressive measure? What was your special measure? Your mind wandered, quickly going back to your imagination. There was the warrior Dimitri, the roguishly handsome Bard Brian, and you, the newbie. Without much hesitation, you lowered your head, gently pressing your lips on Sun's forehead. The robot almost immediately stopped squirming. Instead, he just lied there, as if you just turned him off. You, however, continued the kiss, until the robot sighed happily. Slowly, you moved your head away from him. The robot's head now happily spun from left to right.
Oh, I get it now. You're just repairing me.
You're so talented, newbie. I love you. If the robot could blush, he would.
And that kiss. Yeah, that was sweet of you. No one ever kissed me so lovingly before.
You smiled and blushed ever so lightly. Everything for my little robots, right? There was Brian the Bard, Dimitri the warrior, and you, the seductive newbie